What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Streets of Fire, our six-part documentary on why the Joe Douglas and Robert Saleh era did not work out. We are halfway through now, and we are joined by a multi-time guest on the Badlands feed, Damien Woody, one of our favorites to talk to, and we're going to spend this episode talking about Aaron Rodgers and why the hell it hasn't worked the last 2 years, regardless of what happens in the future. Damien, thank you for joining us. Always appreciate it.
No, I appreciate you guys having me on, man.
So I'm going to start right off the top, and CR and I are going to kind of volley back and forth because we're chomping at the bit to talk about this. So we were believers. I picked the Jets to win the AFC East this year, and I had to go watch Buffalo win it again. I thought Rodgers would be maybe not MVP form, but good and good enough to win 10 or 11 games and just bring some stability to the offense, and probably overlooked how important it is to have a real offensive coordinator in place and not count on your quarterback to do all of that. Uh, it seemed to get progressively uglier as the season went on. And I know everyone kind of left with like the good feelings of the 4 touchdowns in the meaningless game against Miami, but the week before they're losing 40-0 to Buffalo, and they have all these other games where they just like can't score points, and everything is in this like 5 yard horizontal box. And it seems like it's just kind of like him and Devontae playing like an AAU offense, and like there's no structure. I mean, if you had to just like summarize like big step back, like why didn't this work last year? Wasn't Rodgers played 17 games? If I would have told us all before the year Rodgers is going to start and play 17, I feel like we all would have been like, the Jets are probably going to make the playoffs. But what big picture, like what happened
here? There's not one thing that you can attribute to it, to be honest with you. It's a lot of stuff. There's a lot of layers as to why Aaron Rodgers, this experiment didn't work. First off, let's talk about scheme.
Yes.
This scheme that Aaron Rodgers had brought over from Green Bay and let it, we know that Nathaniel Hackett came over, but it's literally Aaron Rodgers' offense. I just think it's an antiquated offense, to be honest with you. It's not what we see in the modern day offense where, in this Jets offense, everyone was static, no motion, no anything to make the defense think at all. That's a problem because in this type of offense, basically what you're saying is my guys are better than your guys. And that to me is failure by coaches and Aaron Rodgers, himself. The Jets have talent, but they don't have the talent where you can just line up without any type of motion, deception, and just go beat people. It's just not going to happen. And so to me, that was a part of it. There was no vertical threat by the Jets, especially in the passing game. So much of offense in today's NFL is about explosive plays. And for anyone out there, is usually you talk about in the passing game, 12 to 15 yards is what you consider an explosive play. The Jets had none of that. I don't know how many times where I've watched the Jets offense, particularly in the passing game, and I would just be pulling out the little bit of hairs I have on my head because they would absolutely not push the ball down the field. It is so hard to drive the ball 80, 85 yards in today's NFL without explosive plays. And so that's another aspect of it. And I just feel like Aaron was just really stuck in his ways. I don't think Aaron Rodgers really open to different concepts, different ways of doing things offensively. I think Aaron Rodgers was, of the mindset of, look, I'm a 4-time league MVP. I've done it. It's worked. It's tried and true. Why should I open myself up for, different styles of offenses, different concepts when I've had a first ballot Hall of Fame career in this offense? And unfortunately, it doesn't work that way. You're not the same. You wasn't the same Aaron Rodgers from, 4 or 5 years ago. You're a different Aaron Rodgers. This is a different team, different personnel. And so I just think it was just a bevy of reasons that why this Aaron Rodgers experiment didn't work. And I'm just talking about scheme.
Right.
I'm not even talking about personnel, coaching, because the coaching was absolutely atrocious. I can't begin to tell you how many times watching the all 22 tape where guys are running the wrong routes, you seeing receivers in the same area, drop passes, just from a schematic standpoint, things just didn't look crisp, didn't look the way it's supposed to be as far as design is concerned. So again, it was just a bevy of things as the reason why Aaron Rodgers didn't work here.
Damien, something I know you can appreciate is a good run game and something that you guys had a lot of pride in when you had so much success here with the Jets. It's unbelievable if you tell someone Brees Hall never had a game this year where he got 20 carries. In a lot of games, he wouldn't even really get to 15. You look at every box score, it's 12, 10. Is there something to, because this is a good offensive line on paper, and there was a lot of times where guys were performing, especially when Olu got in there the second half of the year. Is there something here where schematically it falls back on, or is it lack of commitment as well? For some reason, they got away from the run, where you look at all the successful teams in the NFL throughout the season, even the Bills that have Josh Allen under center, they committed to the run. Do you feel like the Jets got away from that too early at times in the Rodgers era?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think from a schematic standpoint and just from a coaching standpoint, the players were failed, to be honest with you. And you know what's crazy is Brees Hall actually looked better, when he came back from the ACL. Like he looked even more explosive then than he did this past year.
I agree.
To be honest with you, which is shocking. It's absolutely shocking. But yeah, when you have a dual threat guy like Brees Hall, one of the best multifaceted running backs in the league, you would think, okay, we need to give this guy as many touches as possible, especially in the passing game. I remember Nate Hackett talking about he didn't even really know Brees Hall could catch the ball like that. And I'm sitting there and I'm like, are you kidding me? How do you not know as a coach that this guy could catch the ball? Isn't that your job? Like when you came into this job, did you not evaluate the personnel on the roster? Did you not know what this guy was like at Iowa State? When his early years with the Jets, like you didn't know that, and for you to voice that to the media, I just knew. I'm like, okay, this is going to be a big, big problem here. But outside of that, also Keith Carter,
Yeah.
the offensive line coach. Listen, I was telling someone the other day, when Mike Vrabel fired him, that should have been a red flag.
Yep.
I think most people would feel that Mike Vrabel is, one of the better coaches that we have in the National Football League. Is a guy that he was a former teammate of mine. I think very highly of Mike Vrabel, his football acumen. And there were so many warning signs about Keith Carter, whether it was Mike Vrabel, Taylor Lewan, who was, the outstanding left tackle for the Tennessee Titans for quite some time, just absolutely eviscerated Keith Carter. I mean, why would you bring that guy on the staff? And then his work was laid to bear. Again, I go back to the All-22. There were so many times where there were missed assignments, guys just running into each other up front, penetration in the backfield. We all know when it comes to the running game, the number one thing you cannot allow is negative plays in the running game. You can't allow negative plays. And how many times do we see that with the Jets and their rushing attack? So many times where the running backs are dancing in the backfield because there's penetration or blown assignment. And so it's just unfortunate to watch really talented players like a Brees Hall, like a Garrett Wilson, not being utilized appropriately because of bad coaching, to be honest with you.
Looking at what felt like the dynamic with Rodgers, just from people on the outside on the field, you got Rodgers, you got Lazard, you got Devontae comes over mid-year. Then you got sort of, Garrett and Brees and Conklin and some other different parts of the offense. It kind of just felt like everything wasn't in sync from the quarterback on down. And I don't want to say that there were like rifts in the locker room or rifts on the team, but you hear some of the chatter. It doesn't look like Garrett's the happiest he's ever been in his career, whereas you would think after playing with Zach Wilson and Trevor Siemian and everything else he's dealt with, he should be on cloud nine dealing with Rodgers. And he had some nice moments this year, but I don't think anyone left this season being like, that was the Garrett Wilson we really expected with Aaron Rodgers. There's still some rumblings out there, whether they're true or not, that if Rodgers is back, like Wilson probably wouldn't be back, and it just didn't seem to click. Is there anything to the fact, and this isn't just goes beyond Garrett Wilson, could go to other parts of the locker room where maybe Rodgers is carrying himself the way he always has on and off the field as a future Hall of Famer, first ballot, but he's not playing to that same standard anymore. So the other guys are kind of like, this guy's making mistakes all over the field. He is acting a certain way and taking care of his guys. And like, I'm not buying it and following it in the way I would have for Rodgers 10, 12 years ago. Is there any chance that any of that is going on? Because this offense just, something didn't feel right. It just did not like feel like this was like a really cohesive team and guys are like cheering for each other, celebrating for each other. It just felt like very disjointed watching them, especially the final 6-7 games.